Oh! Wait. Did you just take my picture? Do you just make it a habit of taking random people's pictures? Because it's rude and creepy. Here, give me that. Give me that phone. Come on, give it to me. Just, yeah. Yeah, you see, this is a terrible picture. I'm making a face. I look stupid. You know what? I'll be right back. We're going to take a good picture.
Give me back my phone, you jackass! Happy Halloween, guys! Before I begin today's video, I would like you to think back to the early 2000s for a moment. The second slasher movie boom brought on by Wes Craven's Scream in 1996 was on its last legs. People were starting to get a little tired of the smart-aleck, self-aware horror that had dominated the last few years and were looking to get properly spooked once more. And then two movies came out that took the Western world by storm. And those movies were The Ring and The Grudge. Being remakes of Japanese horror movies, a market most Westerners were unfamiliar with at the time, they played by a different set of rules than most viewers were used to. Ghosts and curses, things that nobody had really taken all that seriously for decades now, were no longer confined to ancient relics or centuries-old mansions. Ghosts could now haunt your average apartment or take hold in everyday technology that people took for granted. For all intents and purposes, these two movies practically reinvented haunting. And once the fact that they were remakes of Japanese movies became well known, the world wanted more. And with that, the short but memorable J-horror movie boom had begun. I was about 13 to 15 years old when these movies started coming out on DVD, and I was just beginning to develop a taste for horror. So I have many great memories of me and my friends watching these movies way too late at night with way too much candy in me as soon as our parents were out of town. I'm telling you all of this because I'm pretty sure that the release of the original Japanese versions of these movies were the main reason behind the creation of the cult classic horror gaming franchise Fatal Frame, which sees you in Japan battling ghosts with the help of a magic camera. Fatal Frame, what a brilliant title! It tells you everything and nothing at the same time. It's fatal, so you're in deadly danger. Frame evokes the image of photography and of being stuck inside a box, trapped if you will. And it just rolls beautifully off the tongue, sounding like a curse in and of itself. Fatal Frame. So of course the European version gets a dumbass title like Project Zero. And yes, I know the franchise is referred to as Zero in Japan and there is an item called Zero type film in some of the games, but screw you! Fatal Frame is a far superior title in every way, and it still makes me bitter that I have to call this thing Project Zero around here for anyone to know what I'm talking about. What the hell project does it even refer to? I don't know, it's stupid. I first saw this game at my local library sometime after it came out in Europe, and I had no idea what to expect from it. So I loaned it and I started playing it after school with two girls from my class. And it has stuck in my mind as one of the scariest games I ever played, despite the fact that I've never played it again since. So you know what? This Halloween, we're gonna pop this sucker in and see if it holds up. Prepare to be spooked. In Fatal Frame, you take the role of Hinasaki Miku in 1986, who ventures into the haunted Himuro Mansion in search of her brother Mafuyu, who in turn also went in there to look for a famous novelist who disappeared. Soon after entering, Miku finds an object called the Camera Obscura, an old camera with the power to repel ghosts when taking their picture. And she's going to need it as the mansion is crawling with the victims of an ancient ritual that threatens to curse anyone who enters, and could potentially doom the entire world. This camera is one of the game's main gimmicks and a major selling point, but we'll get to that a little later. For now, let's focus on some basics. You'll very quickly notice that in terms of gameplay and overall style, Fatal Frame is very similar to other survival horror games of the time, like the Resident Evil games and Silent Hill, what with its visuals and the fixed camera angles, and for the most part you're right. You really are just exploring this mansion and going on one scavenger hunt after another in search of that one item you need to progress, while dealing with both scripted and random enemy encounters, and trying to manage a not too impressive amount of healing items. And of course, just like those other games, there are also plenty of books, notes and logs scattered about to fill you in on what Mafuyu and the novelist have been doing, as well as a bunch that gradually explain more of the place's dark history. They even went the extra mile to spook you with some truly terrifying English voice acting.
So this is Himuro Mansion.
The same ones who told us where it was also warned us not to come here, which was quite disconcerting.
The last Buddha statue is at the Shinto gate.
I'm sorry, but Half the tapes you find sound like furniture assembly instructions. Man, the early 2000s really were the awkward teenage years of video game voice acting. Okay, for as much fun as I could make of the English voices, the overall atmosphere of the game is actually pretty excellent. I know I made a whole point about how Japanese horror modernized Ghost while this game is still set in yet another spooky old mansion, but pretty much every room is unique and memorable. And given that it's a feudal Japan-styled mansion and you're walking around in a modern school uniform, you really do kind of feel like you're trespassing, like you're exploring in a world where you don't actually belong. And some of these rooms are just amazingly designed. Like, check out the rope hallway, or the cock and balls hallway as I call it. It's just a long hallway with ropes dangling from the ceiling and a mirror at the end. You have to run through this hallway so many times and you keep expecting something creepy to happen there because it's a perfect location for it, but it almost never does. Yet it's just unpleasant enough to keep you on edge the whole time. I love it! It doesn't just mess with you visually either. It actually has this super cool feature where whenever Miku gets scared, you can feel her heartbeat through the controller. I know that sounds kind of trivial now, and I will admit that I barely noticed it in my playthrough for this video, but this was terrifying when the game was new. Just walking around creepy hallways, feeling your hands vibrate as Miku starts feeling like something is watching her, it's goddamn brilliant. And the mansion is just full of cool areas for you and Miku to be both impressed and spooked by. You'll encounter such classic haunted house tropes as a creepy doll room, plenty of altars, spooky gardens, a kimono room, and all of them are wrapped in this feudal Japanese coat of paint that makes them extra memorable and really striking. It would actually probably be a lovely place if it wasn't crawling with ghosts! Yes, ghosts are your primary enemy in this game, rather than zombies or mutants or demons or whatever. And your camera is basically the only defense you have against them, and the only tool you have to find the many, many hidden ones. For all intents and purposes, your camera is your gun in this game, complete with different types of ammo in the shapes of rolls of film, and fundamentally speaking, combat is not all that different here than in other survival horror games. The main difference is that it forces you into a POV shot when you fight, and the longer you keep the ghost in focus and the closer it gets to you, the more damage you'll deal, and the more points you'll get to later upgrade your camera with. You can even pull off a super attack if you manage to snap a picture at exactly the right time, which the game calls a shutterbug moment. There's also this handy quick 180 turn button for when ghosts start teleporting, allowing you to— OH GOD SON OF A BITCH! This is a brilliant combat system if you ask me. It presents a huge amount of risk and reward, and it partially leaves it up to the player just how dangerous or scary each encounter is going to get. How close do you dare let the ghost get to you before you hit the shutter? Would you rather spam your weaker film or bide your time and hit hard with a stronger attack? And can you keep your cool for long enough to not lose sight of the ghost so they don't attack you from behind? Remember, you're not some badass STARS member or police officer dragging around machine guns and rocket launchers like you would in Resident Evil. You're not even a random adult who'll grab a metal pipe or a gun from somewhere when you find it, like in Silent Hill. You're a teenage girl all alone in a haunted mansion, and you're completely defenseless aside from a camera that requires you to let the enemy get all up in your face to even work properly. It's terrifying! Some of these ghosts do crazy amounts of damage too, so you want to go looking for these mirror stones that revive you instantly if you die, which can really save your ass. But cleverly enough, you can only ever carry one at a time, so you gotta remember where they are and decide for yourself if going to grab one is worth the risk of taking damage from all those intense ghost encounters. And my god, dudes, let me tell you, some of these ghosts are freaky as hell! This right here? This woman scared the absolute fuck out of me as a kid. I mean, look at her! It's a woman with a broken neck and her head all twisted who floats backwards towards you! How grotesque is that? She is still probably one of the most upsetting enemies I've ever seen in a horror game to this day. And that's without mentioning ghosts like Long Arms, who hides around the mansion and kidnaps children, whose ghost you also fight, by the way, because yay, dead children! Or the woman with the eye mask with spikes in it that shambles around blindly, but makes an instant beeline for you if she hears you take a step. These ghosts are messed up, man. Oh, what, those aren't enough ghosts for ya? Well, good news, bucko, cause there's plenty more where they came from. Aside from the ghosts you engage in combat, the mansion has two more types of ghosts. One of them are the vanishing ghosts who briefly appear, usually to give you a hint on where to go next, and give you a precious few seconds to snap a picture for a good chunk of extra spirit points. Awesomely, the game saves most of the pictures you take, and Miku names them pretty clinically like she's an actual investigator. Like this one, Man Before Door. And this is Man After Door. And finally, there's the hidden ghosts, which are static ghosts that hide in various nooks and crannies of the mansion, and are usually only visible once you actually take the picture, after which they disappear. You do get a tracker in the corner to warn you when one is near, and your viewfinder glows blue when you have them in your sight though. And they're not impossible to find, but they can get pretty tricky. And much like the vanishing ghost, they're well worth taking a picture of for those extra spirit points. And trust me, you're gonna need those spirit points if you want to stand a fighting chance. The spirit points you get from ghost encounters are used to buy upgrades for your camera, which include basic functionality upgrades like faster charging, greater distance, and higher damage. There's also a bunch of special attacks like pushing a ghost back or briefly making them more visible, which you can use after unlocking them by using up one of these soul stones that are spread all across the mansion. But good luck unlocking all of these without knowing the game by heart. These upgrades are crazy expensive, so you better get every single one of all those hidden ghosts or be amazing at combat if you want to unlock everything. Personally, I just focused on upgrading the main functions of the camera. There's even a whole third category of extra abilities you can't get until you replay the game at a higher difficulty, and I'll be fucked if I ever go for those. And you know, I can barely believe I'm even saying this, but all this ghost hunting makes the game way more similar to Luigi's Mansion of all things than it does to Resident Evil or Silent Hill. No, seriously, think about it. You're going to a haunted mansion to rescue your brother, you're sucking up ghosts in an everyday device, almost every room has a hidden ghost somewhere that you gotta do a little extra work to find for a reward. I mean, all that's missing is Professor Egad yakking at you every 5 minutes. If Luigi's Mansion is a horror game for a kid, then Fatal Frame is that kid's edgy, older, cool cousin that lets them watch PG-13 rated movies whenever they babysit. It's honestly pretty hilarious. Anyway, ghost hunting isn't the only thing you're gonna be doing. There's plenty of exploring around the mansion to be done and puzzles to solve to open doors, but puzzle is kind of a generous term for the stuff you find here. Most of the time a puzzle in Fatal Frame translates to find item A and put it in slot B, or go here and take a picture of this to remove a seal, or inputting a number from one of the notes you find into these dials. This seems tricky at first because it uses Japanese characters, but once you realize that the numbers go counterclockwise and the dial starts at 0 rather than 1, you're golden. There are a few other puzzles here and there, but the most involved ones are probably these slide puzzles. And while they can take a few tries, I never got stuck for too long on these, even as they gradually get a bit more complicated. But you know what did get me stuck? Most of the random ghost encounters! For the most part, many of the enemy encounters you'll have in the games are scripted, and pretty excellently so I might add, but some of the ghosts will keep popping up as random encounters, at least until you beat them a few times, at which point your camera seals them away for good. I know it's probably done to keep the game from getting boring, but oh my god, these ghosts have a real nasty habit of showing up in the worst place at the worst time. Here's a great example. Oh, wait a minute, vanishing ghost. Oh, man before study. And this is man after study. Anyway, to give you an example, in the second half of the game I found myself fighting a strong boss ghost, more specifically Lord Himuro, barely managing to beat him with a sliver of health left. So I think, alright, I better get to a save point and head for the nearest one. Only to find that in the room right before it, I gotta fight a ghost called the Wandering Monk. I fucking hate the Wandering Monk! This bastard moves more erratically than a yapping chihuahua with Parkinson's. He keeps throwing wisps at you that you gotta take photos of before they reach and damage you. And this room has a giant fucking screen and a statue display that he can constantly hide behind, making charging your camera nearly impossible. But seriously, I died to this guy and had to fight the boss ghost over again so many times that I started being able to just spam my way through the boss without taking a hit. Only for this asshole to keep popping up and kill me before I could get to a save point. Now, I could have gone to a different save point, that's true, but my next destination was behind that one. The other save points were way further away, and who knows what other random encounters I'd have to deal with on the way there. At least this way I'm dealing with the devil I know, you know? So why not just run past him and head for the save point, you ask? Because the ghost can follow you in there? Yep, not all the save rooms are actually safe. It's entirely possible to get to a save point only for a ghost to follow you in there from another room. It's fucking infuriating! One cool thing about the save points I will say though, is that you can always restock your weakest type of film up to 30 pictures. So the game actually has kind of a failsafe for if you ever run out of ammo, which is very nice. I mean, you should absolutely still save your stronger rolls of film to make things easier later, but it's very nice that the game does at least this much to cover your ass. You're gonna need all the film you can get too, because some of the boss ghosts have incredibly annoying patterns and abilities that are designed to make charging your camera extremely difficult. The game also occasionally makes you fight 2 bosses in a row without a save point, and they're gonna be a real chore if you're low on strong film or health items. And some of them are just tedious, like this guy who you fight in an area where all you can really do is keep running in a circle. Not only does he keep teleporting to areas you can't walk, your own slow movement speed is just fast enough that he'll basically never catch up to you. So the whole fight just ends up looking like a slower paced, spookier Benny Hill gag. Hey! I said slower and spookier. That's better. So yeah, the game definitely has its fair share of good old-fashioned PS2 jank. You constantly have to go to menus to switch film, there are too many slightly annoying enemies, the price tag for camera upgrades is ridiculously high, save points are a bit far apart, yada yada yada. But that's just how games were this time, and once you remember that, you're still in for a treat. And what the game might lack in gameplay, at least from a modern standpoint, it more than makes up for in sheer atmosphere and lore. We'll cover all that lore stuff in a moment, but first, just take a look at these cutscenes. Like, I'm not gonna pretend some of these aren't a bit hokey here and there, what with the voice acting and the character models not having aged super well, but holy shit, look how cinematic this is! They're really going all out with the visuals of these ghosts. There's classic misdirection, shocking reveals. This stuff just blew my mind back when I first played it. Although hilariously, Miku seems downright unfazed by it sometimes. Ah, ghost feet on the stairs again, and I just had this place sprayed. But these aren't even the most unsettling parts of the game. Oh, they're intense and scary alright, but it's nothing compared to the creep factor that sets in once you get into the mansion's lore. See, as you progress through the game, you learn that the mansion is actually the site of some truly grotesque human sacrifice rituals meant to shut off a nearby hellgate that keeps evil spirits from breaking out in an event referred to as the Calamity. However, one of the rituals, involving the little ghost girl Kitty you keep meeting, failed, meaning the gate is slowly starting to open without anything or anyone to keep it shut. As a result, the mansion has now become a hotspot of evil spirits that torment and kill all who enter, with those victims turning into vengeful ghosts themselves. This is what sets the game apart from other horror games and makes it extra scary, at least to me. You're not fighting shambling, faceless hordes of zombies or mutants like in Resident Evil, or anything as abstract as a representation of your own sins and insecurities like in Silent Hill. Every single enemy you meet in Fatal Frame was a person at one point. Every one of them was either a victim of the Calamity, or of another ghost that haunts the place, or of the cruel sacrifices that took place there. You can find plenty of logs that expand the backstory of basically each and every ghost, and they're all tragic stories about doomed people who are attacking you out of a corrupted sense of outrage at their own misfortune. All of their stories even interconnect in truly awful ways. Let me give you an example. Remember Long Arms? You know, that creepy child killer ghost? He was just an elderly Himuro family member who objected to his daughter being used in the sacrifices. And now, long after his death, he steals away children in the hope of replacing the daughter he lost. Sometimes you can even hear Long Arms call "Give back my daughter" when you're fighting him. Jesus! Even the broken neck woman who freaks me out so badly was simply an attendant at the mansion who tried to escape when Lord Himuro went berserk after the failed ritual and started killing everyone, only to then fall from the second floor and break her neck. Man, now I kind of feel sorry for her. God, nope, go away, you're still freaky! But this is what I mean. The tragedy of all these ghosts only make the monsters they've become now all the scarier in the mind of the player. All the Himuro Mansion does is perpetuate a cycle of abuse, death, sorrow, and misery. And once you get over the sight of the creepy ghost chasing you, you honestly start to feel sorry for most of them. None of them asked for any of this. Even the oldest, most gruesome ghosts that participated in the rituals were simply trying to stop this shit from happening on a much larger scale. The things they put their sacrifices through are unforgivable, but the alternative is so much worse. And to really put all this tragedy into perspective, I'm gonna have to spoil the ending because, whoo, boy, this one is a doozy. As you play, you learn that Kyrie was supposed to be a rope shrine maiden, which is a sacrifice that gets torn limb from limb by ropes in order to tie her soul to the Hellgate as a spiritual lock. To prepare her for this, she needed to be locked up in a cell for 10 years with minimal contact to the outside world. At 7 years old, I might add, in order to make sure she had no bonds with any people and thus no will to live. Unfortunately, when she was finally let out, only days before the ritual, she fell in love with a young man who was visiting the mansion. Lord Himuro then had him killed and told Kyrie he left, but this only made her long for him more. And that made the ritual fail, which split her spirit in two. An angry, corrupted spirit out for vengeance, and her younger, purer self, who still wishes to fulfill her destiny as the rope shrine maiden. As it turns out, Miku's brother Mafuyu is a dead ringer for Kyrie's lost love. And upon realizing this after you find him and manage to defeat the evil side of Kyrie's spirit, He chooses to stay with her as she locks the hell gate back up, just to ensure that she won't have to spend eternity suffering alone. The gate gets locked and the tormented souls of the Himuro Mansion are free. But Kirie is forever stuck guarding the hell gate, Mafuyu is dead, and Miku has gained nothing from her ordeal. And this is where the game shows itself as being, in lack of a better term, very Japanese, which might put some Western players off because, there's no happy way out of this one. The rituals cannot be defied, and the sacrifices, as awful as they are, cannot be avoided, and are thus shown to be the moral right choice to make in order to ensure the safety of the rest of the world. In order for the rest of us to live, someone has to suffer eternally, through their life and through their death. Granted, there is a happier ending where Mafuyu survives if you beat the game on the much harder nightmare mode, and there's even a third one exclusive to the Xbox version, where Kirie's actual lover spirit accompanies her instead. But tough luck, folks, those endings aren't canon. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, right? Now, I actually kind of appreciate a story that doesn't give the protagonist a convenient loophole to force a happy ending, but god damn, this is dark! And from what I understand, the sequels aren't much better in that regard either. Fatal Frame never became a huge franchise in the West, but it hasn't been without its success either. There's been 4 mainline sequels and 2 spin-offs, and even some manga adaptations and a movie, though not all of it ever got released outside of Japan, and I haven't really seen or played much of it myself. From what I hear, Fatal Frame 2 is easily the best and scariest of the games, but the only one I ever actually played was Fatal Frame 3, and I remember being bored out of my mind playing it and giving up a few hours in. But who knows, maybe I'll give them a go someday. As for the first Fatal Frame, or Project Zero if you prefer, does it still hold up? Is this still one of the scariest games I've ever played? Well, Fatal Frame is not some kind of horror gaming masterpiece when it comes to the gameplay itself. In fact, aside from the cool camera mechanic, it's kind of redundant and almost too similar to its contemporaries, and it's full of the kind of PS2 jank that we all like to conveniently forget about. And no, it's not the scariest game ever. It's very much a product of its time, and I've seen way freakier things since. But the story, the scares, the setting, and the atmosphere still hold up beautifully as far as I'm concerned. Though, I admit I may be biased. Remember how I said I played this game with 2 girls from my class? They sat on the living room couch, and I sat on the floor in front of them playing the game, because they claimed to be too scared to do it themselves. So I'd be sitting there, feeling Miku's heartbeat in my hands, facing all the horrors dead on, and hearing my friends, the same friends I had all those horror movie nights with, reacting to all the scares behind me. While we played this game, I felt like I was the one standing between them and the Hellgate. I realize this probably sounds like total bullshit machismo when I put it that way now, and I'm probably remembering things way differently from how they were. In fact, I'm sure of it, but growing up in my town, I was the local bullied nerdy kid. I got angry when people picked on me, I got really sad and would easily start crying, and I don't remember many times where I got to feel like the hero of anything. But one of the exceptions was when I played this game with those 2 girls from my class. And I'll never forget that feeling. And that's why, for whatever flaws it may have, Fatal Frame, or Project Zero, will never stop being special to me. So, go have a great Halloween, you guys. Fill your bellies with candy, and make sure to get your spook on. Bye-bye.
Alright, I'm back. Now let's take a good picture, or else I'm gonna swallow your fucking soul.
Happy Halloween, everyone, and thanks for joining me in one of my spookiest gaming memories. Are the other Fatal Frame games any good? Are there any other lesser-known horror games that you love? Then make sure to tell me about them in the comments and click the like button while you're down there. Extra spooky special thanks go out to Eli Cat, Warren Miller, and Silvermoon Ravenwolf, along with each and every other patron. You have no idea how flattering your support is, you guys. If you want to be a patron or otherwise support me as well, you can find links to my Ko-fi and Patreon pages in the description below, as well as a link to my Discord server, which you are more than welcome to join. And of course, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more crazy content in the future. Thanks again for watching, and have yourselves a spooky Halloween. See ya next time!